Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is Brian Shields. I'm the CEO of Neurent Medical, which is a medical device company based in Galway in the west of Ireland. The company was formed in 2017, but the origins of what we're developing went back prior to that. The founders were part of a needs-led innovation program where we spent about 1,000 hours following ENT surgeons to understand fully what the next great unmet or undermet clinical needs were. We spent the following couple of years then addressing concepts to try and meet these needs, testing them commercially and technically, ultimately ending up in a €9.5 million Series A, venture-led Series A in early 2018. And we're currently seeking one or two additional partners to our investor syndicate in raising a Series B towards the end of this year. So we're looking at rhinitis as a disease. It is an inflammatory disease of the nose. The human nose is a hell of a lot more complicated than what appears in the front of your face. It's about 5 inches deep from tip to the back of almost your throat. And what we're focused on largely are the 3 bony outcrops on the lateral wall of each nasal cavity. They're surrounded in mucosal tissue. And rhinitis as a disease is an inflammatory disease focusing on this tissue. So the tissue becomes inflamed, therefore finding it patients can't breathe, diseased patients can't breathe, and there's an excess mucus production which causes runny nose. Therefore the 2 symptoms of rhinitis, blocked nose and runny nose. So in understanding the patient landscape here, there are a lot of rhinitis patients out there, about 40% of the population. The vast majority of these sit in what we call self-care. So this is over-the-counter medication. As we move towards the moderate disease, we're now looking at some sort of physician intervention. This is split in 2. Your primary care physicians that would be prescribing single treatments like a steroidal spray. Your ENTs do come in here where there's a combination therapy required or complex medical therapy. We then move into the most severe part of this. This is certainly ENT only. It is failed medical therapy and those that elect to have a surgical intervention, and they are not very good procedures. So rhinitis, when everybody thinks of rhinitis, they probably think of quite a benign disease. There's been a lot of international studies done that put rhinitis from a quality of life perspective right around the same place as the more commonly understood impactful chronic diseases like CHF, COPD, diabetes and so on. There is an increase in level of work and school absenteeism and presenteeism, therefore economic impacts. But importantly, rhinitis is the 5th most common chronic disease in adults, the most common in children. If you look into the progression of rhinitis, if you have untreated rhinitis or badly treated rhinitis, in children this is a causal link with asthma, and in adults with sinusitis, increasing both the quality of life impact and the economic burden of the disease. We have a clicker not working. So what we're looking at is a rhinitis neurolysis therapy. So as part of the work, the research work that we did prior to and just as we established Neurent Medical, was to understand the roots of the inflammatory disease. And the root of rhinitis is actually a nerve imbalance. So a parasympathetic nerve driven or motor function driven inflammatory process. If we look here at the blue shapes here, they're venous sinuses. An overactive parasympathetic nerve causes those to engorge with blood, causing congestion. And these little yellow shapes here represent mucus glands, which hypersecrete mucus, causing runny nose. They're driven by, this is a picture of a healthy neuronal bundle, driven by parasympathetic nerve. So in our therapy, we will look to damage those nerves, and that is an example of a necrotic nerve. And stop that inflammatory process before it begins in this tissue. So we've developed a device to achieve this in the office. This is something that we're leveraging very strong surgical predicates, and we developed a device to take this from what was originally quite a barbaric 1950s surgery to what today, using this device, can be delivered in the office under local anaesthetic. So it's a radio frequency based technology, very low power at 3 watts. It's delivered into the nasal cavity of the patient. It expands, so it's delivered in a low profile and expands out a basket in the posterior space. A series of electrodes along the basket then deliver this energy to create a high number of micro lesions on the nasal cavity wall, therefore interrupting this nerve multiple times. So how do we know this happens? So we've done a lot of preclinical work over the last number of years. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of histology slides, but there's one here that's worth looking at. We have what we call a worst case stack up. This is where the treatment is applied. This is our large bore arterial supply. The nose is highly vascularized. This is a deep set neuronal bundle, and this is your bony backplate. So this is just zoomed in on the artery. We've delivered therapy here and not damaged that artery. Yet in the nerve that was sitting behind the artery, protected by the artery, has been damaged irreversibly without damaging the artery sitting above it. So this is a worst case stack up that any therapies any devices that try and fast follow here will struggle to do. This is down to the sophistication of the algorithm that we're using here. We have thousands of hours of virtual modelling built up. This is both to understand exactly what it is that we're doing from a lesion size and shape and depth, as well as becoming an increasing requirement from the FDA when delivering technical files for energy-based devices. We conducted a 5-patient usability study last year in Northwestern University in Chicago with great outcomes, and we are currently enrolling our first in-human study with early data sets completed. We look at this in 3 ways. Feedback from the surgeon from a usability perspective is excellent. The patient experience has been excellent, and that is a significant factor for ENTs. And most importantly, our symptoms are being reduced as planned. So we are having an impact for this disease for these patients. Very briefly, over the next 2 years, we're looking at some key milestones. We'll complete enrolling our first in human the first half of this year and start straight into a randomized study. We will look to submit a technical file to the FDA this summer with that's a 510K process for clearance in Q3 for initial commercial testing, commercial pilots in Q4. Next year, more of the same with the clinicals. We want to deepen the clinical evidence here. We'll complete the RCT and start a pivotal study running up with drugs in control. We'll look to expand our R&D pipeline, which has already started, and bring that to the clinic, as well as full commercialisation. So that commercialisation, some important market numbers. Rhinitis is a very, very big disease. Our initial target market is at the ENT. It is split in 2, non-allergic and allergic rhinitis. So if we focus on the non-allergic disease, we're focusing specifically at those that are medically refractive and those that have elected to have some surgical intervention. Similar in the allergy space, the complication here being we have an allergic subset here that are treated by allergists, and we'd require referral through to ENT, so that's market development. Conservatively, we look at over the next 5 years having a €50 million revenue just with this indication. So our business model is fairly straightforward: lease of capital equipment and the sale of high volume single-use disposables. Technology built into this to ensure that they are single-use disposables. Some important new trends, just in summary, in the market. We have seen an increased consolidation of ENT practices. This is important from a call points point of view. Average practice size has grown from 2 to 5 ENTs over the last 5 years, with the introduction of a rhinologist subspecialist, so very focused account management. We have seen a significant increase in ENT office treatments over the last 5 years due to 2 reasons. The introduction of technologies like this that enable an office treatment, but also the continued downward cost pressures on all parts of the health system to bring these treatments out of an OR and into an office. Finally, we've seen an increased number of M&A transactions over the last 4 or 5 years in ENT. The place has become quite exciting. And finally, the team, the founding team sit on the board of directors. We've added 2 independent non-execs in Mark Fletcher, our chairman, who's formerly headed up Medtronic's ENT business, and Eamon Brady from Galway, who is a serial medical device entrepreneur. Justin Lynch is a partner at Fountain Healthcare Partners, the VC that led our Series A in 2018. We have a world-class scientific advisory board. This is a subset of it. So these guys are either past, current or future presidents of the American Society of Rhinologists and the American Academy of Otolaryngology. And as a startup, we leverage consultants. So we've picked the best domain-specific consultants across regulatory, reimbursement, IP and clinical affairs, as we look to maintain as much knowledge in all of these spaces as we can by using consultants close to us. So that's Neurent Medical, a brief overview of Neurent Medical. Again, we're looking to seek partners for participation in a Series B towards the end of this year. Thank you.